Welcome back and thanks for staying with the SABC News channel. There are a number of developing stories sharply on our radar. One of them is unfolding in Sandton. That's where Proudly South Africa is currently holding its 12th Buy Local Summit and Expo 2024. Currently speaking in relation to that gathering is the Minister Ebrahim Patel, who is part of Cabinet. Let's listen in.
Labour leaders who are present here today, Zingiswa Losi, as well as a number of other Labour leaders. Some colleagues, I've seen Ashley and others who have been here today, and it's great to see all of you representing the community. Warm greetings to Thulani Tsefuta, who brings another voice, an important voice to the storyline about Proudly South African, and good to see you on the floor earlier, Thulani, where we did the exhibition. And I'd also want to greet all of you, those of you who run businesses, those of you who are in the marketing of products. A warm good morning to all of you. Let me start by saying how proud I am. How proud I am of the work that is done by South African-based companies, by activists who are promoting the idea of the Buy Local campaign, and of the Proudly South African team, because you're taking forward the defining economic challenge of our times, growing our economy, industrializing South Africa, creating jobs. And so it's my pleasure to be here today at the 12th Annual Proudly South African Summit and Exhibition, and to be part of this event. Proudly South African represents both a vision and a set of actions. Its vision is one of a country that produces more and more goods and services that consumers buy proudly, knowing that it is of high quality, that it was made by South African hands, that it embodies good standards for those who produce it, that it is innovative, and that it sustains livelihoods for businesses, for owners of capital, and for communities. But Proudly South African also represents something else, a commitment to action, a set of practical things that it brings and that it offers its members. And so Proudly South African helps to showcase some of the best of local industry. It does it through the kind of displays that you see in the marketplace that is downstairs. I would urge those of you who have not done a walkabout to do so, and you will see more than 200 exhibitors showcasing Proudly South African products. But the campaign does more than that. It also helps to market South African goods to a wider range of consumers, to let South Africans know that there are products made here in the southern part of the continent that is excellent and that they should be queuing up to buy. And in a very welcome development for me, Proudly South African has also now introduced a matchmaking element. And they're experimenting with it this year, where they're bringing together local businesses and procurers. And I am told that more than 400 meetings have been set up over the next, over today and tomorrow, in which procurers will be meeting with local players, with businesses, finding out what they make, where their factories are, and trying to find ways in which they can connect as buyers of those products. I also welcome the stronger private sector involvement. Proudly South African was always born as a partnership between communities, businesses, trade unions, and government. And business is taking more and more its rightful place in leading the drive to buy local. And when you bring that enterprise and that energy of the business community into a campaign like this, it can strengthen it very, very significantly. I know that one of the highlights of today's exhibition and summit is the pledges that will be made where local companies will make commitments to buy local. And I'm told this year there will be 17 pledges, and it will be a very significant example of the partnership that we have. There's much to celebrate about local production. I can point to last week, I launched a new solar fridge and freezer that is made in Ladysmith in KwaZulu-Natal, co-designed and developed here in South Africa together with the international investor that owns the plant. And that fridge and freezer runs solely off solar power with a 3.5 day storage of its battery, made locally, ready to be exported to other African countries and to parts of Asia. I can tell you about pharmaceutical companies, local companies like Aspen Pharmacare and like BioVac that now have received licenses to produce medicines that South Africa and the rest of the continent used to import from other parts of the world. We are now able to, we have the license to produce human insulin to treat diabetes. We now are able to produce oral vaccines for cholera. We have the capability and the licensing arrangement to do vaccines for pneumococcal meningitis. These were products previously imported that will now be proudly made in South Africa, not only for our own market, but for the continent. And they build on what the experience we've had during COVID-19 when we discovered the importance of our industrial base. That South Africa was able to take a plant in Gqeberha, a plant by Aspen Pharmacare, and offer to the world that we could produce vaccines there, and eventually we became one of the largest contract producers of COVID-19 vaccines. We now produce, that's the Johnson & Johnson one, we now produce also, we have the license to produce Pfizer vaccines. And what they show is that a deep lesson from COVID-19 has been the importance of building a local supply chain, of making sure that Africans too are able to supply basic medication to their citizens. Just in the last period, Volkswagen has announced that South Africa will be the sole global platform for the production of all new Polo vehicles. We've had from the 1st of January this year, Rooibos tea has been given preference on the Chinese market with a massive reduction in the tariffs that China has historically charged on South African Rooibos tea. So we are now exporting tea to China. And so many examples. Every week there's a new and fresh example. We've now gained entry into the Saudi market for South African meat. And so as the world discovers the gems that we have here, proudly South African is about making sure South Africans see that too. Last week, President Ramaphosa convened more than 1,200 delegates at the second Black Industrialist Conference. And during the evening proceeding, he awarded a number of recognitions of excellence, awards of excellence to Black South Africans. And so we see increasingly now that not only can we rely on the talent and the energy and the enterprise of white South Africans who are citizens and patriots, we can also now increasingly see more and more Black South Africans coming into manufacturing and into production, enhancing the pool of manufacturing and productive skills in our economy. The Proudly South African campaign is an important part of a wider set of endeavors to build and strengthen local industries, to industrialize. We do so because we recognize that value is created not simply by digging products, but by adding value through the ingenuity, the skill, the ideas, the technologies that our society has produced and that it is able to produce. And in that way we create jobs, we create high-paying jobs. Today, something that was started in the early 2000s, following the 1998 Presidential Job Summit, has become mainstream in South Africa. And I am constantly amazed and take note of the way in which this campaign is now being replicated in many other parts of the world. Many African countries now are also looking at how to build greater local consumption of products that they make. We see it not only in Ghana and Nigeria, we see it in Egypt and Kenya, we see it among our neighbors. And when you look at Asia, you see it in India and you see it in China. And when you look to our west, you see it in the United States under successive administrations, the Made in America campaign. Increasingly, we're seeing it in Europe, that while we are part of a global value chain and trading with the rest of the world and buying things from the rest of the world will always be an important part of what we do, we recognize too the role and the importance of supporting local industries. And we're seeing that, many other countries are seeing that. In 2020, Business Unity South Africa and organized labor joined government in agreeing a range of localization targets aimed at expanding local production by some 40 billion rand a year. We have by far exceeded that target. We now have many billions more that we are producing locally through the range of activities by the private sector and the support programs of government. Within government, a number of steps have been taken to help strengthen local procurement and to partner with industry. I'd like to share with you just 6 of these initiatives. And the first initiative is one that we're particularly proud of. It's a program of partnership with businesses at local level, at the sector level, called Industry Master Plans. We have one in a number of different sectors, and just to point you to the way in which these partnerships at sector level is driving the localization campaign, I can cite the example of sugar, where the big retailers, from ShopRite Checkers to the other retailers, the big food producers like Tiger Brands, the big beverage producers.
Trade and Industry Minister there, Ebrahim Patel, speaking in Sandton at the 12th Buy Local Summit and Expo 2024, hosted by Proudly South Africa. He's spoken about a whole host of things. Much of it, of course, is centered around boosting the local economy. He reckons gatherings like these, which are going to take place over 2 days, go a long way in doing exactly that. He's spoken about South Africa also breaking into the Saudi market when it comes to our meat exports and how that, of course, will be a great revenue generator. We'll continue listening in to what the minister has to say and everything else that's going to unfold at this gathering. But of course, there are many other stories that are sharply on our radar. I'll get you a sense of what you need to know beyond our borders in a moment.